Our next presenter is Mohammed, who's going to be talking about his university project, right? On distributed beamforming using GNU Radio and USARPs.
So that is I need to connect to?
That's just if you're doing audio. Are you into audio?
Oh no.
No, don't worry about that. Just the over here.
I need that pointer also. So, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mohammad Mehboober Rahman, and I'm from University of Iowa. My topic of today's presentation is GNU Radio, USRP-based software-defined radio, testbed for distributed beamforming. So, before I go into the technical details, I first want to pay my thanks to my advisor, who is Professor Raghu, and then I will acknowledge our collaborators, Dr. Francois and Professor Madhav, who are at University of California, Santa Barbara. And finally, I will thank my co-advisor, Professor Dasgupta, who is at University of Iowa. So here is the brief outline of my today's talk. So first, I will introduce the concept of distributed beamforming, and then I will discuss some implementation details of distributed beamforming on GNU Radio USRP platform. Finally, I will present some ongoing work, and then I will conclude. So what is distributed beamforming? So let us understand by means of a simple example. So we have a setup. There is an experiment. So we have one transmitter, one receiver. The transmitter is transmitting with power Q, and after passing through the channel, the received signal strength at the receiver is A, and correspondingly the received power is P. So now we have another experiment in which the transmit power is doubled. Since the channel remains the same, so the received signal strength at the receiver, it also doubles. So which means the received power at the receiver is doubled. So now we have the third experiment in which there are two transmitters and one receiver. The two transmitters, they are transmitting with the same power as in case of experiment 1. So what happens is that when the two signals, they are aligned, so at the receiver, the sum signal, it becomes twice in magnitude. So correspondingly, the received power becomes 4 times. So we can generalize it to say that if we have n such transmitters, so it means the received power at the receiver will become n square times. So that is the gain in energy efficiency that we get because of the distributed beamforming. So that example is, just here to illustrate that if we have one such scenario that there are multiple, there is a bunch of sensors who want to send their sense data to some overflying aircraft. So individually, the power of each sensor can be very low because of the power limitation of the sensors, which are battery powered. So if the sensors, they cooperate with each other to make a virtual antenna array, I will say, that's just like the distributed beamforming, it's a synonym. So the received signal strength, the received power at the receiver will be much higher in case they transmit together. So having motivated the concept of distributed beamforming, so let's see what are the challenges we need to overcome to gain the benefits of distributed beamforming. So here are some of the limitations which we need to overcome. So first of all, when we have multiple transmitters, each having a single antenna, and then each transmitter is running its own clock, so it means different transmitters, they will be running different clocks. So naturally, the frequency and phase offsets, they are present because of the oscillators manufacturing limitations. And then finally, the worst thing is that the clocks of individual transmitters, they drift over time, as can be seen from this diagram, that all the clocks, they are aligned at time 0, but then they just deviate from each other. So not only we have to compensate for the frequency and phase offsets, rather we have to track them periodically. So there are some other issues also for the virtual arrays, that since in case of a virtual antenna array, the transmitters, they are irregularly spread out. So some kind of channel state information is required. And then moreover, if all the sensors are cooperating transmitters, they want to send some data to the intended receiver, then they must be aligned in time. And I mean, finally, all the transmitters, they should exchange their data and come up on a consensus on whose data will be transmitted at what time. So these are some limitations of the virtual arrays, some challenges of the virtual arrays, but we will be mainly dealing with the frequency synchronization and phase synchronization. And in the end of my talk, I will discuss the issue of time synchronization briefly. So there has been, I mean, quite a significant amount of work in the recent past on how to make distributed beamforming feasible. So here is a set of different techniques used in theory and verified by simulations. And we can, I mean, the conclusion here is that there are different techniques and they offer different trade-offs actually. So, but my today's talk is about the implementation of distributed beamforming. So I will discuss some of the recent implementation of distributed beamforming. So almost all of the recent implementation of distributed beamforming, they have utilized this so-called famous one-bit feedback algorithm. So let me explain it a bit, because we are also using this algorithm, and then I will, I mean, explain that what's novel with our methodology. So that plot is the phasor plot. It's showing that there are 4 transmitters who want to transmit to a single receiver, and all these transmitters, they have some, they have their own phase. So what transmitters do, that algorithm is iterative. So during one iteration, each transmitter perturbs its phase slightly, and then they send their signals, their individual signals to the receiver. The receiver measures the signal strength of the sum signal, and if the signal strength has increased than the previous iteration, so the receiver sends some feedback information to the transmitters that the phase change you have applied, I mean, it is good, so just keep it. So the transmitters keep their new phases, and then they repeat the process, apply some new phase changes, and the receiver measures the signal strength again, and if the signal strength is bad, so they discard their previous phase perturbation, and then they just keep repeating this procedure over and over again, unless the signal strength, it reaches the theoretical maximum value. So that is, I mean, a cool algorithm, so it removes the need for, I mean, channel estimation and the other sophisticated methods. So having this said, the previous implementation of distributed beamforming, they had some limitations. So the algorithm I have described on the previous slide, so that algorithm, it implicitly assumes that all the cooperating transmitters, they are already aligned in frequency. So only leftover thing is the unknown phase offset. So what the previous, I mean, what has been done in the previous work is that they distributed the clock to all the cooperating transmitters by means of a wire. So it was just like, I mean, I would say that it was just like a MIMO. And then the previous implementations, they were using the custom built hardware. So that cannot be, reused with ease. So now, in our work, we're not assuming that the cooperating transmitters, they are synchronized in frequency. So we will be doing both frequency and phase synchronization. So that's a significant advance from the previous work. So what was the motivation of using a software-defined radio? So motivation was that if we have transmitters which are transmitting in the range of gigahertz, so those frequencies are high enough so that we cannot digitize them and operate on them. Rather, if we use this, notice this particular observation that if one transmitter is sending a signal and the other is receiving, so after the signal is demodulated, what is left over is the phase offset. So even if the signals, they are at gigahertz frequencies, the relative phase offset between two transmitters, they are just on the order of few kilohertz, so they can be tracked and then compensated in the software. So we are using the STR and specifically the Genio Radio USRP for all the good reasons that, Genio Radio is open source. USRP also comes with, lot of, the good properties we want to use. Or moreover, the mailing list, they are, quite friendly and active. So let me now explain the system model we have used for our research. So we have a bunch of transmitters who want to direct their energy in the direction of one receiver, and then the receiver is sending some feedback information. That is precisely the information which is used by the one-bit feedback algorithm I've described earlier. So let's see what's inside a single transmitter. So inside a single transmitter, we can see there are two parallel processes. The top process is responsible for doing the frequency synchronization. The bottom part is responsible for doing the phase synchronization. So what happens is that receiver is sending some feedback information that is received here, and that we act upon it somehow. So I will explain it in the next slide. So the top part is doing will do the frequency synchronization of this transmitter with respect to the receiver. So here is a zoomed in view of the receiver. What receiver is doing is simply averaging the signal strength over some duration, and then it's computing a single bit of feedback to send to the transmitters. And that single bit will be 1 if the signal strength has been increased compared to the previous iteration, and that will be 0 otherwise. So once the feedback bit is generated, we packetize it and send it. So here is a more illustrative diagram of what is going on. So here is one transmitter and one receiver. Actually, there will be many transmitters, we know. So what happens is that during every iteration, the receiver computes the feedback bit and uses it as a payload and then packetizes it to make a GMSK packet in our case, and then sends this information back on this feedback link. So we can see that the forward link and feedback link, they are at different frequencies. Yeah, okay. So then the transmitter is receiving the GMSK packet. Then we know that the top process is the frequency synchronization part, and the bottom one is the phase synchronization part. So when the packet is received, so this block is doing the blind estimation. That block is using the packet itself to compute the frequency offset of this transmitter with respect to receiver. And then the bottom part, we are using a demodulator. The demodulator extracts the payload, which is the 1-bit information from the receiver, so that the 1-bit feedback algorithm, it accordingly discards or keep the previous phase perturbation. In any case, the new phase perturbation is applied, and we can go back to see that the frequency compensated signal and the phase perturbation, they get multiplied, and finally the signal is sent into air. At that signal, which each transmitter is sending, it's simply some unmodulated tone. So we are not sending any data right now. So that is some ongoing work I will explain later. Yeah, another thing. So here we have divided our experiment into time slots. So each time slot is this represented by this variable t slot, and then the receiver is sending a packet for only that much duration, t estimation time. So we can see that the channel remains idle. So that is something we want to do. We want to use the minimal feedback from receiver to transmit so as to reduce the overhead. So because the bandwidth is costly, so we want to use as short packet as possible for our purpose. So you can see from the previous slide here that first this block is doing some blind frequency estimation, and then since this estimate of the frequency and phase offset is noisy, so we pass it through an extended Kalman filter, and then finally that frequency offset is compensated. So now here, so the extended Kalman, the reason we had to use the extended one instead of simple Kalman filter, the reason was that we have this nonlinear measurement model. So because of the fact that how each transmitter is measuring the phase information from the GMSK packet, so the only I and Q components are available, so we can use the cosine and sine of the phase. So it means the unwrapped measurements are not available. So that is why we need to use the extended Kalman filter. I mean, these are some slides I just want to go through quickly. So, I mean, we were analyzing the performance of Kalman filter, and we saw that if we, simply speaking, if we send more packets, more feedback packets from receiver to transmitter a second, so obviously the phase will fluctuate much less. It will become more and more stable, and also the standard deviation of the maximum phase error, it will reduce. So obviously, I mean, if the filter, Kalman filter is getting more and more packets, so it has, I mean, more estimation values, so obviously it will perform better. So there is another plot which simply shows that the blue region represents that the values for the time slot and the packet duration for which, I mean, the filter is converging and working properly, and the red region shows that the values for the for which the Kalman filter diverges, and the circles and crosses, they represent, I mean, the corresponding values we obtained through experiment. So we can see that there is quite, I mean, a good agreement between the two, and the black line is showing the Kramer lower bound. Yeah, it was actually an observation, so I mean, yeah. We can discuss it in more detail if someone is interested. So while we were doing the implementation of distributed beamforming on GNU Radio USRP, so we came across, I mean, multiple challenges. So one of them is this. That is the flow graph of one of the transmitters, and you can see that it's kind of a faithful representation or replication of the block diagram, which was a high-level overview. So that top part is doing the frequency synchronization, and the bottom part is doing the phase synchronization. So only thing which was, I mean, a little bit difficult for us initially was that in our case, receiver is sending 20 packets a second. So it means that the phase update is to be applied after every 50 milliseconds. So bottom part is operating at low rate. The top part is operating in the continuous streaming mode. So we were to, I mean, to use this probing mechanism to apply the new phase perturbation to the signal which is to be sent into the air. So that we have done using this function probe mechanism. So we were not sure if there is some other good way to do so. So yeah, exactly, we want to find a way to pass the message between the blocks no matter when they arrive. Then at the receiver, what happens is that, as I explained before, that this is our block which is doing the signal strength averaging, and then it computes a feedback bit, and then we packetize it, and then we send it into the air. So I mean, the people, I mean, all of you have the exposure with the GNU Radio and GRC, so you can see that this part is operating in continuous streaming mode. So it's, and then we want to send only 20 packets a second, so we had to use some kind of decimation inside so that we will be sending only that many packets we desire. So also, since you can see from the timing diagram that we want the packet to occupy the time, the channel time for, I mean, a very less amount of time, and then we want to have some idle time in between any two successive packets. So those were the challenges we encountered here. So now I move to the results. So these are the results. These are some of the initial results. When we were using some analog signaling, the feedback was a continuous wave signal, and then we were using the Costas loop for frequency locking. And here, from the results, you can see these three. I mean, the y-axis represents the amplitude, and these are the, I mean, the signal strength or the amplitude when individual transmitters are on, here when the two transmitters are on and beamforming algorithm is enabled, and here when the three transmitters are on and beamforming algorithm is enabled. So you can see that in case of three transmitters, I mean, there is a gain of 3 in the amplitude. And the right one is the diagram when we try to send some data using on-off keying, and you can see that the timing synchronization was not present because we were switching on and off the two transmitters individually, manually. So here is the corresponding plot on the oscilloscope. So what we did was that whatever was the sum signal at the receiver, we simply reflected it to the oscilloscope using a basic TX daughter board, and you can again clearly recognize the region. These are the regions where individual transmitters are on, and then this is the region where two transmitters are on and doing the beamforming. So the received sum signal is theoretical maximum. Here is the case when three transmitters are on and doing the beamforming. So how to check if the beamforming is really working or not? So that is the case. So that portion represents when two transmitters are on, and then they are running the 1-bit feedback algorithm. But when we disable the 1-bit feedback algorithm, so you can see that since the phase tracking is absent, so some of the time, I mean, they combine coherently, and most of the time the signals, because of the two transmitters, they combine destructively. So when we turn the algorithm back on, so I mean, the signal strength goes to the theoretical maximum again. And these are the more recent results when we are using the packetized feedback, the timing diagram I showed, and then the case when we are using the Kalman filter for frequency locking. So these plots, they look a bit noisier. So I mean, we are still working on them to refine. So now I will go on to present some ongoing work. So we are now interested to send data from cooperating transmitters to the receiver. So if we want to send data, so all the transmitting nodes, they must be aligned in time. So how to achieve the timing synchronization? We are doing this by means of time of packet arrival. So again, there is a timing diagram to illustrate this, that the transmitters, what they do is that they find the time of packet arrival, and then we assume that the time of packet arrival, we obtain the timestamp. We can obtain the timestamp from the USRP FPGA, and since that time of packet arrival should be same across multiple transmitters, so this time of packet arrival, we can use this as a common trigger event for all the transmitters. It is just like a PPS1, but we are doing it in completely distributed fashion. So we are not, in need of GPS or any other centralized reference signal. So yeah, once all the transmitters, they calculate the time of packet arrival, so then they simply send their data packet after some delay. So that is the main concept, and the block diagrams, I mean, I hope you are already a bit familiar with. So now, I mean, the high-level diagram looks like this, that inside each transmitters, there are 3 parallel processes which are going on. The top one is doing the frequency synchronization, and then, I mean, the same feedback packet from the receiver is being used for all purposes, right? The packet itself is being used for blind frequency offset estimation, and then by means of match filtering, we are computing the time of packet arrival to do the time synchronization, and then finally, the payload inside the GMSK packet is being used for the phase synchronization. So that is how the flow graph it looks in GRC with our current setup. So you can see that this block, the LO estimation block, it's estimating the frequency, and it's also doing the match filtering to compute the time of packet arrival, and we are sending the integer and fractional parts as it is to the transmit side, where we have pre-recorded data packet, and then we associate the appropriate tags, and then we just send it over. So here the main problem we are having is that this particular block, which is sending the data packets to the receiver, that block, we derived it from the grsync class, and between any two data packets, we are sending a lot of zeros. So that is not a good thing. So what we want to do is that we want to make a block which will be outputting something only when it is desired, and there should be nothing in between. So here are some initial results for our time synchronization work, and we can see that is the amplitude at the receiver when one of the transmitter is sending a GMSK packet, and that is the corresponding amplitude when the other one is sending a packet individually. So here is the case when both of the transmitters, they are sending a GMSK packet. So we are basically looking at the amplitude due to one single GMSK packet. So here the phase tracking is not there. So you can see that the amplitude is fluctuating. So signal strength is not good. So we want to make the signal strength as flat and maximum as possible. So here is when we enable the phase tracking by means of 1-bit feedback algorithm. So we achieve the theoretical maximum gain. So that brings me to the conclusion. So we have this short-term objective that we will be having an ad hoc network, and then each node is sending packets sporadically to its neighbor, and then those neighbors, they will be indeed using some kind of filtering mechanism to filter those noisy estimates of frequency and phase offsets of themselves with respect to the neighbor. And finally, they will be using some consensus-based approach, so that if there is a connected network, so in that connected network, all the nodes, they agree to the same frequency and phase. So yeah, that's also the same thing which I just said in words, that these are the packets being received at a single node from different transmitters. So these are our long-term and more ambitious objectives, that we want to achieve virtual MIMO, and then we want to make nulls in certain directions, and then we want to do the interference cancellation in case there are multiple receivers. And yeah, we can also use these concepts to localize some source. So that was pretty much the objective of our research, that we wanted to provide some building blocks for the beamforming, and then we want to see the beamforming being embedded into the practical packet-based networks. And then, yeah, we, graciously, welcome the collaborators from the open source community and the hobbyists. And finally, the project description, that what we are doing, the recent publications, and the source code for all of the corresponding to all of our submitted papers, they are available at these two URLs. Yeah, and I'm not sure if these are the feature requests. These issues which we haven't solved yet, they might, the developers, you might have the solutions for those. So, I will say that these are unresolved challenges for us so far, that we want to make such blocks which can send packets only when we want them to be. So they should not be sending data in between. So we kind of need a bridge between the streaming mode and the async mode. And then we want to do some kind of efficient message passing between the blocks. Yeah, and third one is not, that significant. So that is all. So thank you for your patience, and I'm now open for questions. Yep.
I noticed in the shots where you had 3 transmitters running, there was a higher band of noise. So as you add an additional transmitter, the sort of deviation of noise increased. Did you try additional transmitters beyond 3?
Not so far, but we can do so, yeah. But our primary purpose was to just demonstrate this technique.
It's very cool. The other question has to do with receiving. Would this methodology also enable you to receive signals and to coordinate multiple receivers in a way that could...
Yeah, sure. Yeah, actually, one of my collaborators is now working on this concept called receive beamforming. Yeah, just the technique I have described so far is called the transmit beamforming. So the receive beamforming is also done. So that is something my collaborator is working on right now.
Anything else? Yeah.
So when you're receiving, you have your amplitude as some function of all your phase offsets. How much do you have to worry about like local maximum, so that because you're like doing random perturbations and see if it increases? Do you get local maximum, or is it always nice and well behaved?
Yeah, I will say that it's nice and well behaved. Yeah.
Okay.
So our algorithm, because it's iterative, so the perturbations, they are being added and discarded all the time. So there is no chance of the algorithm to stick to some local maximum. It's indeed proved by my professor that this algorithm converges with probability 1. So in linear time actually.
Cool. Thank you.
I have a question about the phase synchronization. For those perturbations, are those randomly selected?
Yeah. Each transmitter is selecting those perturbations randomly. For example, for the plots I have shown, so each transmitter is generating those perturbations from uniform distribution, and then they have the range from -15 degrees to +15 degrees.
Okay, thanks.
So there's someone on the back.
Could you talk a little more about how you're measuring the local offset at the frequency offset at the transmitter? I didn't quite understand that.
When a packet is received, so we have the GMSK waveform after the down conversion in the baseband, and then we are basically utilizing one of the previous results, that how to do the blind estimation for the for the PSK packets or for the GMSK packets. So in our case, what that theory tells us is that we just need to scare that signal, the incoming GMSK packet. So we scare it, and then we take the FFT, and then we find the maximum peak. So that gives us the the scared signal is actually twice the offset. So then we divide it by 2. So that is how we are doing the blind estimation.
I think that was a very interesting talk. I'm interested. So I believe this works. I believe I'm convinced that this works.
Yeah, actually, we have shown it in a demo in a conference a few months ago.
Yeah, I believe in it enough to believe this works if the signals are high enough above the noise floor.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that if their signals are weak enough, below the noise floor, this doesn't work. And I'm curious if you have any understanding yet of how far above the noise floor do the signals need to be for your scheme to work?
No, actually, what argument you have if you're saying that the signals, if they are below noise floor individually, then this technique won't work? What argument you have?
Well, at some point, it has to stop working if the noise is overwhelming at some point. So.
No, first, I'm not sure. If you're saying that the noise floor exceeds the individual transmitters level, or when all of them, they are doing the beamforming, the sum signal, it remains below the noise floor?
You could answer the question either way, but there has to be some point at where it stops working and some point where it does working, and I'm wondering if you know where that threshold is.
Actually, to my understanding, if it is not a problem if the received signal because of individual transmitter is below noise floor, as long as the sum signal due to all the transmitters, it remains above the noise floor, so we are good. So we haven't done it with experiments, but this is what we have got from the simulations.
I was hoping it would be nice someday if somebody understood this analytically, and maybe that's future work.
Sure.
All right, one more question.
Is there any consideration in using GMSK rather than other non-constant envelope modulation schemes?
You mean why did we use the GMSK?
Yeah.
I mean, there was no specific reason actually.
Yeah, so
we just picked it
yeah,
randomly.
it's because it's like a constant envelope, so kind of follows pretty nice. So if you use a basic BPSK, how do you like have any idea how it's going to behave in that case? Like if you have thought of something.
So if we use the BPSK, so we can do the blind estimation, and then yeah, I think it should work with the no matter what modulation scheme we use. I do not see any potential problems with that. So.
All right, thanks.